Hello there. Welcome back to CoolCouve. My name is David Benedictus.
And I'm Daria Ruggles.
Today we're going to talk about senior homelessness in Clark County and what's becoming an epidemic throughout the United States with the story that you probably saw in the December 11th Columbian about a woman named Loretta Shaw and a man named Andrew Stewart who encountered her coming into his plaid pantry.
So welcome, Andrew. We're so happy that you're here. Tell us what happened.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. And this is an issue that we need to have a discussion about. When it comes to individuals who are facing homelessness and who are seniors with memory care, next to children, they are absolutely the most vulnerable members of society. So I really appreciate you guys having me on today so that we can talk about this. I've been the manager of the Plaid Pantry on 4th Plain and Kaufman going on 13 years now. I have, 2,000 or 3,000 folks that walk through my front door every day, and we develop relationships with those folks. And we are the first line when it comes to dealing with people who are facing housing challenges. And frankly, a lot of people who are facing mental health challenges. And I had a customer for about 2 years who you would never have known was homeless. You would never have known she was living in her car. That had become more and more apparent over the last 6 months. And she came in one day, the heater core in her car had broken down and she was hypothermic. She was blue. And it was pretty obvious that if we didn't do something immediately, she would not have lasted one more day. So the community there on 4th Plain and Kaufman, working class, blue collar people who don't have a lot of money, all came together. We got her in a hotel. We got her connected with some social services. And I have the time where I was able to really make this my primary focus, where I was able to organize a GoFundMe. I am her primary caregiver. I organize my associates to also help out. I've liaised with social services, and I am very pleased to announce that as of today, the 18th, she will be moving into her new apartment in Knights of the Pythias. That's actually happening this evening.
So. Oh, congratulations.
Now that's the supported services facility, Knights of the Pythias, or
it's not necessarily assisted living, but it is, there is a hall monitor that goes around every day. I'm still going to be with her every day. I had to convince her of that. I think one of the things that she was concerned about is that once she got into housing that I would disappear. It's not that way. We also have an organization called CMAR. I don't know if you're familiar. They do an outreach to seniors, and they'll be stopping by Monday through Friday, which is incredibly kind of them. Loretta loves all the gals involved. They're very sweet. And the important thing about getting her into an environment like that is that she will be able to make friends. And for folks that have memory care, to stimulate your brain, to have varying environments, to have folks your own age to have as friends is vitally important. They need that. It stimulates different portions of their brain. I have read so much about memory care. I've read so much about memory decline. This last 4 or 5 months has been eye-opening for me. I had no idea.
So this is so interesting to me that you got so deeply involved when you had no experience at all. What surprised you, Andrew, about this whole process? Good and bad.
The goodness of people, the decency of the people in our neighborhood who went out of their way, folks who donated, folks who were living paycheck to paycheck, kicking in $10, $20, $50, people that didn't really have it. My very dear friend who took her to the hotel the very first night and paid the first few days, who did not have the money. He has asked me not to mention his name, but he is the kindest man you'll ever meet in his life. He works in healthcare. Um, he really stepped up on this, and so many people have stepped up. Um, the One of the things that surprises me is I don't think that we've had a discussion as a society about the care that these folks need, even just interpersonally. In the time of COVID, everyone's patience are short, but a lot of folks will snap at Loretta, like if she gets too close to them, and she does not understand. We need to have that as, I don't quite know how to put it. We need to have a discussion as a society that we have profoundly vulnerable members and we need to give them some leeway.
So
Absolutely.
you mentioned that you had been aware of her. She had been coming into your store for 2 years.
Yeah, always very professionally dressed,
Mhm.
always very well put together. Her hair was always done, even when she was living in her car. She always maintained that hair appointment. There are
Huh.
things that it just made her feel human.
Yeah.
That was her thing. And she brought a lot of the homeless folks from the neighborhood in to buy them sandwiches and buy them coffee when they were cold. And to this day, she says she's the luckiest woman in the world because she had a car to sleep in.
Mhm.
And those poor folks that she sees outside, it breaks her heart. As a matter of fact, right now, my poor, long suffering boyfriend, the world's most patient man, if I could just throw that in there, the back of his truck is full of coats from Goodwill and socks from Burlington Coat Factory, because when Loretta sees somebody outside on the street, we have to go get something for them. She insists on it. So, we gotta follow the orders of the boss here. So, yeah, that's been one of our focuses. And something for Loretta that is really important for her is that with everything she's been through, she really wants to help people because she knows what it's like. She remembers being scared. She remembers sleeping in that parking lot freezing cold. And there's an embarrassment factor. She was a woman of some means in her life. And it we spoke the other day about setting up a Facebook page for her. I think, and she doesn't want to do it. She's embarrassed that the folks she used to know would find out she was homeless. And that breaks my heart. When you have memory care, you can't follow up on appointments. You can't follow up on paperwork. You're not going to remember. She's not to a point where she can function in daily life with some assistance. But there are a lot of folks that end up in that same position, and I don't know where they go. I don't know what social service is out there for them. And near as I could find, there is no organization that specifically focuses on homeless men and women who are seniors with memory care. And I looked nationwide. I wanted to find somebody that could tell me what to do. And that's one of the things Loretta and I are going to work on is I want to use what happened with us as a template.
Mhm.
Oh, excuse me, I just dropped your there we go, as a template so that I can help other people. It's very difficult when you work a 9 to 5 job. If you call for social services on the weekends, a lot of them are closed. And, for folks with a big heart, but not a lot of time, it's very difficult. And we need to make it as easy as is humanly possible.
So that makes me think back to 2 years ago when she became homeless. My understanding was, from the little I read in the paper, is that she was renting a place and then it was sold and then she moved into her car.
Yes. Now, she
So
was
there's a
renting.
gap there. It looks like that would be a template. It'd be in the template, right?
That's what it was. Now, that was right when the memory care was presenting. And she had also lost her job at the time. She was a school bus driver.
Oh,
And she had rented a home from her brother and rented it for below market rate. And when
okay.
her brother passed away, her niece and nephew informed her she had 30 days to move on out.
Wow.
And she did not have the money saved. She couldn't afford first and last. And she couldn't really follow up with all the different services that she needed to do. It's not a matter, we need an omnibus source. We need one phone number you call that will direct you to each of these varying, and there are a litany of them, services. And if Loretta came in off the street and spoke to someone, you would see an incredibly well-dressed woman, very well put together. You would think this is not someone who needs my help. So we need that desperately. And especially in Clark County, you know, everyone talks about the homeless crisis. I don't think they realize how devastating it really is or how many people are homeless. You don't generally see them if you live on 192nd. You don't see them if you live in Cascade Park. I live downtown. I live right by the I-5, hence the headphones, because you would hear the freeway. I interact with those folks every day at work, and I interact with them outside of my home, my apartment building. And, you know, there are a lot of people who desperately need this assistance, and that it seems like it's a Herculean task to get it. And that's what we as a society need to fix. So that's why I'm so glad I can be here today and that use this forum to talk about this.
So Andrew, how do you think that we can start to make this happen? I know that, for example, we did pass Proposition 1 here in the city, which is supposed to go to creating more opportunities for affordable housing. I mean, are you thinking that you're going to be working within the structure, speaking to city or county council? I mean, what are you, how are you proceeding and how can we help?
Direct action by citizens. Social services totally overworked, totally underappreciated, and the amount of need in Clark County is overwhelming. What we need is for people like me, people like you, to find an individual that needs your help. That guy that's outside on the street corner, the gentleman who lives across the street from me, who's in a wheelchair, who, you know, is a vet and has no legs and, you know, is panhandling for change. We need outreach to that gentleman directly, and we need to follow up with him. It in a sense, to adopt someone as an individual of need that you know you can follow up with. And this is not a part-time gig. When you find someone, you need to follow through on it. It's not enough to take them a sandwich at Thanksgiving or take them your leftovers. You know, a lot of times around the holidays, people get really involved in volunteering. The biggest need for it is January, February, and March, when it is cold and it is rainy and those folks don't have socks, when, you know, they don't have waterproof boots or a waterproof coat. The reason you see those folks with so many jackets is because they don't have laundry services. Why are we not providing free laundry services to these folks? Love's Laundry on St. John's used to do that one day a week. We need better outreach. And we need more than the share house, which a lot of folks have safety issues regarding. There's a young kid in his mid-20s that came into my store, just moved up here from Salem, new to being on the street, and it breaks my heart. And that kid, I am really worried about him. There are a lot of dangers, and there are folks who will take advantage of homeless men and women. And that is one of the things we found with Loretta, was that when we cleaned out her car, we found alcohol not hers and narcotics not hers. And individuals were taking advantage of her and living in her car with her and taking her money. And one of the things I ran into was folks were asking me, is she off of drugs? Just because she's homeless does not mean she's on drugs. That is a horrible misnomer we need to get away from. That just because someone is on the street doesn't mean that they have a problem with alcohol. That that stigma sticks to people, and you can never get rid of it. It is how we as a society see them, and it's disgraceful. So I have purchased what now that Loretta's moving in today, and I am still going to be with her 7 days a week, but we're also working on getting an in-home care provider. That's what the vast majority of the GoFundMe money is going to go to, is getting her in-home care, with a licensed CNA, which will be nice to have somebody come in 3-4 days a week. But once this is settled, I purchased a domain name, lorettashouse.org. And I have a developer friend, web developer friend, who is going to help me. And I want to set this up so that I can show other people how to do what I did. And it's going to take us, you and me and David, all of us working directly. We can't rely on the social service system is so upside down. My heart breaks for those people. I have a friend who's a 911 operator. The things that she deals with, I can't imagine. It's soul crushing, to be honest. The depth of the need and the depth of the despair. And since COVID, we aren't talking about the trauma of COVID. And it's a trauma. All of us have experienced a terrible, terrible trauma, emotionally and psychologically. And she says she sees that with the phone calls she gets with individuals who want to self-harm. And the this awful, awful experience should teach us all that we need to work together as a society, that if we don't, nothing's ever going to get better, and it will take direct action. I can't emphasize that enough.
So when you're talking, I wanted to go to the ongoing care that you're bringing in. And I think most people think who aren't aware of the social service continuum and how it's a means dependent, how much money they have, that the social workers who come in don't automatically activate some social service for her eligibility to get them in to do a wraparound service. That means bringing in services that address their immediate needs, and then have regular people coming in. So sounds like she doesn't qualify for Medicare and Medicaid services coming into her house. Is that right?
She has Kaiser.
Yes.
And through Kaiser, what we can do is Kaiser will authorize, I believe, up to 24 hours a week of in-home care.
Okay.
And I believe that will draw on both Medicare and Medicaid. You need those two to combine. And that has been a labyrinth, trying to get everything done and organized there. But also we had COVID and the holidays.
Right.
So it's been, I work 7 days a week. So the time I spend with Loretta, I do a visit every afternoon for about an hour and a half, and then I do an evening visit.
So the GoFundMe page, what's that going towards now?
Well, right now we have all of her bills paid. We have her rent paid. The one big store-bought item that we went for was a bed. We bought her a bed from the mattress store. That it's the first new bed she's ever had in her whole life. And she slept in the car for 2 years. We can afford the bed. And I think $700 was not the end of the world considering, but that money is finite. That's not going to go forever. And so what this needs to be there for is, and she does get Social Security and a small pension, but she needs someone to step in and direct how all of that is going to go. And that's what I do. And one of the things I'm looking forward to is getting some more folks involved, because it is a lot for me. I am happy to do it. It is the best thing I've ever done in my entire life, and it has taught me more than I can imagine. I want to write a book about the things Loretta says. She has these great little Loretta-isms. It's hard to explain. Just
tell us some Loretta.
Oh, okay. Okay. How can we start with this? There's a great one that I have on the thing. There's goodness in everyone. It's just a matter of whether or not they decide to use it. She has a very dark sense of humor. And we were at Fred Meyer, and I like to take her to wide open spaces that are inside so we can walk. And I don't really like doing a lot of in public stuff because of other people and the dangers of COVID. But we'll do Fred Meyer when it's close to closing time because she's a night owl. And we're walking through the clothes, and there's the maternity section, and she's just pointing, ugly, ugh, double ugly. And you're already pregnant. Why do you want to look like that? Loretta, you gotta slow it down, or don't. Yeah, yeah. She's a card. But just her heart breaks when we walk downtown. We'll do Esther Short Park
Mhm.
because she's been staying in the Hilton downtown. They have been amazing and very accommodating. They've been so wonderful. If you use Hotwire, by the way, they are cheaper than the Econo Lodge, which was surprising.
Really? Oh,
And yes,
Amazing.
yes,
'Cause it's
I was going to
beautiful.
say the Hilton, kind of like, wow,
$70 for the
wow.
Hilton. $70.
Wow.
Yeah. And Econo Lodge was more, but we were super desperate. And when we started the GoFundMe, we did not know where the next $5 was going to come from. This was on credit cards that we couldn't pay ourselves back for. This was the most dire straits. I cannot emphasize that enough. And then a wonderful woman named Casey, who lives in the neighborhood, she posted it on Nextdoor and it blew up. And a friend of mine said, why don't you call the radio guy? And I called 101 and he put me on the air. He was very kind. They did the Colombian story. I am very nervous about the attention. I don't know what it, I wasn't, I don't like to be in front of the camera. All of this is a lot for me. Every time people say anything nice, it's like I'm covered in spiders. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so, but
We won't do that then.
okay, all right, yes, just vicious cruelty is what I appreciate and expect. Um, yeah, this, I just want to convey to people how many, I want people to ask themselves, how many more Lorettas are there out there? And did you drive by a Loretta today? A sweet, wonderful old woman living on the side of the road. Do you know her story? Do you know what she went through? And Loretta went through a lot, a real lot in her life, a real lot. And it has not been sunshine and roses for her. She lost her husband and her son. Her son passed away very early. In his 20s. He had Down syndrome, and that had to be very hard to raise a son where he's going to pass away. And she could not prepare for retirement. When you need to utilize your resources to care for your disabled child, who's going to care for you? Where are the institutions to care for our sick and our aged? Where are they? And they don't have the ability to outreach the way we think they do. They're not Superman. They're not wandering the streets at night. They don't have the money for that. They can barely make it day to day. And when they're dealing with folks, and I have seen folks who have drug issues and who have kids, and those kids get taken into foster care. And my employees and I talk about it like, well, why did it take this long? Well, I'll tell you why, because there are kids in way worse situations. With Loretta, one of the reasons why social services did not have to be as involved is because Loretta has a me. I am there to do this stuff and I'm happy to do it, but I think we need more people involved in this system, not less. And we need more appreciation. Lifeline has been absolutely amazing. Her case officer, Nicole, is a saint. I love that woman. I cannot say enough nice things about their organization.
What's
Seymour.
Lifeline?
Lifeline?
Yeah.
Lifeline reaches out to vulnerable adults.
Mhm.
It's a charitable organization. They had a brief placement for Loretta in a home that was not fit and had to do an emergency removal.
Wow.
I have had some very choice words about that, but I want to choose them carefully because of the situation. And I did not want to complain about it because I was worried if Loretta got a reputation as a complainer, it would be hard to get her into someplace. Thankfully, most of that stuff is not in her memory anymore, but it was a bad situation. And when Lifeline realized what was going on, they called me, and my boyfriend and I went over there, and we met him there, and we removed her things from the home, and we took her back to the hotel, and we got her all set up. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey. And Loretta has been through the wars, and now the end of that is finally coming. I can't wait.
Oh.
So what I've heard you talking about is that people who have cognitive impairment, which you're when you say memory care, it sounds like Loretta has cognitive impairment,
Yes,
maybe the
yes,
beginnings
indeed.
of it, some kind of dementia process. And that's of course often exaggerated and amplified if she had that prior to going into her car, then the isolation and the poor sleep patterns and the lack of good food would exacerbate that and accelerate that process.
Oh, yes. And, she
So
wasn't
you literally
eating.
saved her life. I'm going to thank you for that,
Yes, Andrew.
spiders and all. So you literally saved her life. Right.
Well, she wasn't eating every day.
Yeah.
And eh, it breaks my heart, and I feel incredibly guilty that I didn't do something sooner.
Oh, Andrew, you got to let that one go.
I I think about her out there, and she until the car broke down, she was happy to be in the car. And that's a sign of the illness because it's familiar,
Yeah.
because it's safe, and it's emblematic of her freedom. A lot of seniors see that with driving with their cars, that when that goes, you've completely lost that individual sense of, and especially somebody who was born in 1940. You were a kid in the 50s and 60s, and that a car is your license to the world. And when that's taken away, that's devastating. Her car, unfortunately, has terrible mechanical problems. She had a lot of people working on it that did not know what they were doing, and that we're not really focused on the car right now. The issue right now is getting her safe and happy in the new apartment building, and hopefully for her to make some friends, some contemporaries, and play pool with them when this COVID nightmare is over. I have her, we're waiting to figure out when we can get her the COVID vaccine.
Oh,
Um,
yes. Yeah.
because and I believe that I also, as a frontline worker and a caregiver, will qualify on that list at a higher level.
Mhm.
So I'm working on that. She's nervous. I'm going to go in with her. I'm not. It's a vaccine. We get them. It's yeah.
And one of the things too, Andrew, I work at the library, and Knights of Pythias is on our outreach, and so I already gave her name, and so depending on the safety issues, we've got Loretta covered with library resources, whatever you would
Oh,
like.
that is wonderful. I cannot remember the name of the author that she loves. She loves mysteries.
And
I can't remember the name of it, but she has a number. We have a bunch of stuff we've got to get out of storage, but I cannot wait to get her reading again. That is when she is happiest. Um, we've been through a lot, and there have been a lot of changes. And for a while, I purchased a violin from the pawn shop downtown, and Loretta was teaching me how to play. Since we've moved from the old hotel to the new hotel, there hasn't been any playing. And that's, I don't know if that's a progression of the disease or not. It's something I've been concerned about. So I have a nurse coming in on the 30th of this month who is going to do an evaluation of the stage of decline so
Mhm.
that we can get the best care going forward.
Absolutely.
She wants to live independently for as long as she is capable, and I have told her that that's absolutely what I'll help facilitate her to do until such time as it's not safe. And when it's not safe, it's going to be time to look into long-term nursing care.
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't like thinking about it, but when the time does come, I will be there with her, and I will be advocating to make sure she goes into the best quality facility we can find. I don't know if Kaiser Permanente offers services for elder care. David, do you know? If they have I don't even know what the system would be like, a copay. I have no idea. This is all foreign to me. I've barely navigated this far. So
I've been out of it for a while, since 2013. Um, so not sure what services exist at this point through Kaiser and her Medicare and Medicaid. They certainly have social services that will do outreach and look at what her financial situation is and work with her caregiver to figure out what the best placement would be for her, and to meet her needs and also her personal requests. So they're adult family care homes, and then large assisted livings, and they all have different levels of care um, and different fee structures. Which is, I most recently went through this last 4 years with my mother-in-law, who we had to move out of her home because she, in her 90s, she couldn't take care of herself or drive, and she didn't want in-home services, fiercely independent, right? Just like Loretta. But fortunately, we were able to move her. She had the funds to move to an assisted living, and then but it's interesting that in an assisted living, the family is the caregiver.
really,
Really, because the assisted living, what they do is they provide meals, and they take blood pressures, and they follow through. But they're just there to respond, to give her medications, and to check in with her a little bit during the day, but not to do caregiver functions. So
okay.
that was
I
something I didn't realize. But having been a psychiatric nurse and knowing the system, working in the system, I was able to navigate the social service system and advocate for in the medical system and stuff like that. So all the things you're talking about, it's a year since she passed away, actually. We moved her for the last 3 months. We moved her into our home because she was in decline, and she passed away in our home. So I resonate with that journey that you're in. I feel that really strongly. Tearing up a little bit here. So
Well, and I realize how expensive those homes can be.
yes,
I have an extended family member who was in Buenaventure, and
yes,
it was $14,000 a month.
14,000.
$14,000 a month. 10,000 plus visiting angels for 4,000.
Wow, yeah.
And
So
that financially bankrupted and emotionally, and it's devastating. And it will be all of us one day.
yep.
It will be all of us. And folks who have kids, my boyfriend and I don't have any kids, not without a miracle. And who's going to take care of us when we're aged? You need to look out for yourself. But when you cannot do so because of profound medical issues, that's where we need a social service system to step in, and we need a template that we can utilize to help as many people as possible.
That's what a healthy society is supposed to do, right? That's the social contract, is that we're all supposed to be giving a little bit from everybody to take care of all of us. And
And it ain't that much. It ain't
that,
that much given
and
our time.
I also wonder, and David, we may have to examine this. I mean, that egregious cost that, the privatization of this, the privatization of prisons, that's something that David and I want to speak about in the future. I mean, that you look at who does this benefit and why is that?
It's
You want to
the short answer is the for-profit healthcare system that has stripped out the public health and the outreach services and centralized it. But the thing that it brings up is how COVID has kind of stripped away the veneer of the inequities and shown us the huge inequities that you are holding up right now in Loretta's story. That's it. That's it. The huge social service and healthcare inequities because of the way we've structured our healthcare system, our social service system as a for-profit endeavor. I worked in, don't hold this against me, I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare in care coordination for mental health and chemical dependency. And that's where I saw how the for-profit healthcare system grinds the sausage, right? So the inside of how that works. And the high administrative costs and all that stuff. And we can do it so much cheaper, universal health care. That's another show we'll do.
So the measure of a society is supposed to be how it cares for its most vulnerable population. And so, you know, when I think about like David's knowledge in this, and Andrew, your commitment, and even though I understand that you knew nothing going in, you certainly got a quick expertise. And when I think about like the viewers right now that are watching this, you know, there is this vilification instead of recognizing that these people, this certainly makes me want to cry too, that instead of recognizing that your natural humanitarian instincts, if you saw, you know, there's that saying, if you feed a hungry person, they call you a saint. If you ask why that person's hungry, they call you a communist. And so there's this weird, you know, veil between all of us walking around and what you said earlier about that person that you know that is panhandling because they don't have anything. So
and what I don't what scares me, profoundly scares me, is kids today that are growing up, and when you go over to Portland and they're sitting in the back seat of the car and they see those shanty towns, the Hoovervilles along the sides of the freeway, and they think that's okay. That is not okay. We cannot allow that in this society. It is completely unacceptable, and I don't care what we have to do, but we need direct and absolute outreach. Bring in FEMA at this point. And the other unintended health consequences of this are astonishing. You know, when you end up with these large encampments of folks who cannot find housing, some of whom, I will admit, some of whom are in this because of drugs or alcohol and do not wish to go into housing, although frankly, that is a mental health issue as well, you are going to have profound public health problems. You know, I used to live off the Columbia River in a floating home, and you would see sewage being dumped from the RVs that were parked along the side over off Delta Park. You know, the unintended consequences of this, the people that are falling through the cracks because the situation seems so daunting. Well, here's what you do, one person at a time. You start with Loretta and you move on to the next one and the next one and the next one, and you have to do it and you have to keep going.
okay.
You touched on a topic very near to my the last part of my career and to my heart. And as we talked about what a civil society is and how we take care of people, I'm reminded of the presentation the Council for Homeless did in one of my classes at Clark College, when they talking about the projection that we put onto other people who are in that state. You know, so well, why didn't they plan? Why didn't she plan for retirement? You talked on that. Why didn't she have better planning? Well, social services is supposed to take care of it. It's kind of the Dixonian, are there no workhouses? Are there no poorhouses kind of thing. And there's one of the things about this story is that it goes to the heart. You can't reach the mind. We say in early childhood education, you can't reach the heart until you can't reach the mind until you reach the heart. Is that we have to go for the stories in the heart. And that's what you're doing here, is encouraging people to make a difference, one person going out and making a difference. And by doing that, educating themselves about the need, and then joining, initiatives to make things better.
And this is part of the blame society that we live in. Well, they're homeless, that's their fault. They're sick. If somebody gets MS, you don't say, well, they should have eaten better. You don't blame people for being sick. Mental health is a sickness. They did not choose this. There are people who have profound alcohol and drug problems. That is an illness. They are sick. They need our help. They don't need to go to jail. We don't need to have that constant rotating misery. When a friend of mine works in corrections, when you go in and you're having a psychotic break and they release you after, and you can be medicated while you're inside, they can release you with what, 3 days of antipsychotic meds and a doctor's appointment in 2 weeks. What do you think is going to happen? We are setting these people up for failure. Not a month ago, I saw a kid that I have known since he was 14 across the street from me, across from the tire place, basically try and suicide by cop. He had a sword. He was swinging it around. The cops had guns drawn on him. He tried to grab the sword and stab the cop. The cops tackle him. They hold him down. He's back out on the street now, but profound mental health problems, profound drug problems. And that right there, that one individual who I am not equipped to help, but I would desperately like to, we need the services for him. He needs inpatient. And he needs an inpatient that will understand, not a padded room that will lock him up and pump him full of whatever antipsychotic or whatever they give you and keep you doped up until they kick you back out on the street. It is a rotating system of failure. And why we're going to allow this? Don't we want a functioning society where people are healthy? It seems like we're invested in their failure.
The system is set up to make people fail. As when I was coordinating mental health services for Clark County back in 1996 to 2001, people at that point in time, the neuroscience was just starting to come out from studies that were done in the 80s and the 90s about the root causes of mental illness and drug problems. And it starts with what they call the epigenetic changes to the human being by the environment that they're born into. So it's just the luck of the draw about what family you were born into. Not only that, but where your place was in the family, because the resources and the support system that's available in the family change over time, right? So that actually sets up most of our chronic diseases and causes the dysregulation that starts in early childhood that leads to mental illness and attempts to regulate the dysregulation by using drugs and alcohol. It is a chronic disease process that starts in early childhood or and repeated exposure to chronic stress, like in cases like Loretta's, right? So with that, we have the information, we know what works, and we have to have the public will to address that if we're going to be a civil society.
Yeah, we need the information to inform the infrastructure.
Right.
So it's like when you think like Andrew, I think about, you have your direct action. And then what can we do as a community to sort of, I think about Proposition 1, I think about the closure of the navigation center. I think about amplifying things like David when you retired, but in the medical industry, and we both didn't know about Lifeline. So what do you think we can do as a community?
A triage system needs to be set up. And we need to focus on, I recently read an article that the Howard Johnson's at the mall has been purchased and is going to be turned into an emergency shelter, specifically for, I believe, adults who are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. I think we need to have hotel vouchers. That has seemed like it has worked very well with Loretta. That's not going to work well with everybody.
You need
Also,
a manager with people going into the hotel.
Yeah, and Loretta's a saint, so it's a different story. Although she would call the front desk and chat sometimes at 2 a.m, and they lived in the office. Yeah. So there's a lot of stories I could tell you, but it was when Loretta left the Econo Lodge, it was better for everybody involved. She was not asked to leave. They were very accommodating and very kind, but we found a cheaper, better deal, and time was up. But Ideally, it would be a triage system
Mhm.
and housing. And I don't understand why, when we have these huge apartment complexes being built downtown, but in what universe is what $2,100 considered affordable? What? Are you insane? That is beyond belief. And I understand that we desperately need housing, but if you're going to property tax abate them, you need to have a specific number of units set aside for individuals who have gone through a pre-screening process, maybe adults with kids, or with infants, because I'll tell you this much right now. When parents want to live in neighborhoods where their contemporaries are wealthier because the schools are better, you want your kids raised with those kids. You want them as part of their social group. That is important. And all of these new buildings, why can't we set aside a certain specific number of apartments? If you want a property tax abated, here's the deal. You got to do this. And existing apartments as well. And I don't want, my nightmare scenario is that we develop and some of Vancouver Housing Authority housing is excellent. Walnut Grove is an excellent complex, very well run. Vancouver Housing Authority does a spectacular job. Anthem Park, incredibly well done. We do not need to house a gigantic group of low income people, some of whom are profoundly dysfunctional, in one area, because what will happen is those people will be shoveled off and they will be forgotten. They will not get the resources they need. They will not get the transportation that they need. We need increased C-Trans service. I cannot emphasize that enough. We need directions to social services to be handed out. This is something Loretta and I are working on a laminated sheet, because when it's soaking wet, if we give you a piece of paper, it will be ruined. It needs to be in large font, because a lot of times if you're living on the street, you can't find your glasses. You've lost them, and it needs to use bus routes to direct people to where they need to go. This is where you go to get signed up for food assistance. This is where you go to sign up for energy assistance or rental assistance. This is the process with which you take. And we don't do that. That kid that came into my store, however long ago, the kid, I don't know what happened to him. I haven't seen him. He easily could be down at the share house. And I worry about that and kids like him getting victimized. We need to triage these people immediately. This is an emergency. And it's not just folks like Loretta, it's folks with kids. This is folks with who, this is kids as well. What about kids in foster care that time out, that are in a system where it cares more about the amount of money being brought into the home rather than the best care for the child? And all of a sudden they're released back out. Well, you're 18, you're on your own. They don't have the life skills they need, and they will turn to, they will do whatever they have to do to get by. And some of that may even be nefarious. That's not fair. Yet another group of people that we as a society are failing. We need a fundamental restructuring. And it can start in Clark County. We can do it here. It's a small enough area that we can focus on the individuals that desperately need our assistance right now.
So be it.
Yeah. So what do you have to say to our elected officials?
Okay. To our elected officials, I would say, number one, we need more C-Trans service. I think that is incredibly important, because if you work swing shift and you get off at 11 o'clock at night and you need to be able to take the bus home, I really like what we've done with bus rapid transit, but I don't feel like the routes are long enough, and I don't feel like it services the areas that are utilized most, which are generally middle and low income areas.
Mhm.
Specifically with stops in large multifamily apartment complexes. We need those. We need those folks to be able to move around. They use C-Tren not by choice, but out of necessity. And we need to focus on affordable housing. Desperately, desperately. We need to change the guideline where it is 2,100 or some insane amount of money and it's based off of Portland, downtown Portland. This is not downtown Portland. I live on, downtown Vancouver. It's a very different animal, and we need to reevaluate that. Also, I want to know what's going on with the Vancouver Police Department. I would like some civilian oversight. I would like a civilian review panel, and I want, okay, this is a side tangent in a story, but I think it's important. If you are a contractor or you work out of your house or you fix garage doors or you fix people's decks and somebody comes and throws a cinder block through your back window and steals $8,000 worth of your tools, which has happened to multiple of my customers over time, and you file a police report, the police don't even come to your house. They don't even bother showing up. Quality of life issues, car prowls, basic stuff, people, coming into your yard, going into your garage. I realize that stuff doesn't seem important, but it magnifies on itself, and it's about our quality of life. We shouldn't all have to have our homes and our businesses and our cars covered in cameras at all times. And the real root problem of that is, who is the individual that's doing that, and what can we do to help him? Let's the What can we do to get that guy that's out prowling cars, who undoubtedly is going to get a car stereo and sell it so that he can buy narcotics? What are we doing to get him into treatment right now? What are we doing to get him off the street right now? And I think Housing First has been an amazing success. I don't know if you guys have done anything about Housing First, where Housing First, I think Meriwether is Housing First, and there's a complex down on Mill Plain. It is a non-sober living facility, so if you are on the street and you have a drug or alcohol problem, you can apply to live there. They do not require you to be sober, and in about half the cases it works. That getting off of the street, you stop doing that because you don't have to. A pint of whiskey will keep you warm when it's freezing cold. We need more of that. And there's a stigma attached to that. Why am I paying? Why am I using my tax dollars so that some guy can go drink in a building? Because half of them will get better. Half of them will have a better life, and 50% is better than none. And we're talking about dozens and dozens and dozens of human beings that have their lives back. Can we focus on that, please?
Yeah,
So,
oh, go ahead, David, go ahead.
well, there's a discussion going on in all our community as well as others throughout the nation about what policing looks like and how it can be partnered with and married with robust social service outreach. So then the police become the triage, and they bring along the services that wrap around the person and put them in the Housing First or whatever is available. So imagine you have those resources. You think, well, what does this person need? Drug and alcohol, mental health, okay. And then, by the way, separating those two doesn't make any sense anymore. So because they're part of the same challenge, the same disease process, as you were saying. So this is a great way to engage people in this conversation about what we want for community policing and what we want the focus to be. And do we really need a SWAT vehicle? And maybe people and the police officer looking, like they're ready to storm a building, rather than dressed in a way that they can interact with the police. We've worked on this, the community policing thing is a huge thing. I also have a background working in mental health and corrections, and the support for people coming out of mental health services or chemical dependency or corrections needs to be much more robust and much more integrated into the community, so that there are bridges to bring people in and stabilized housing for folks, and then employment. When I was working for the juvenile court, kids would damage stuff and they have huge restitutions amount, thousands of dollars. Well, how's a poor kid going to make thousands of bucks to do that? So how about a community program that kids can work and make money to pay back the restitution or some negotiated amount, and they get a feeling of value. So this is the things we were working on prior to the Great Recession, prior to COVID, and they all get washed away and have to be recreated when we go through these huge financial crises that are caused by our focusing on the wrong issues, right?
Mhm.
Making capital instead of making healthy people. So you can use that if you want. So you've come up with some gems of this. I've written it down here. So I think you're spot on from a person who's worked in mental health for 40 years and worked with those issues up front and personal, trying to find a hotel that would take someone that was mentally ill rather than putting them back out on the street. And then the hotel calling up and complaining about them bringing in other people. So you need a place
That
that case management, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and they're depending on the level of mental illness,
Yes.
depending on what stage they are in their treatment, depending on if you are medicated and if you are no longer having delusions. And, there are folks who legitimately are dangerous, and we need to get them treatment. We need to get them off the street. That is another public good.
Mhm.
And we can't have them, that kid that tried to get the cops to shoot him, that kid, I want to know what we're going to do for him. And I want to say how much I appreciate the Vancouver police. I have seen them go out of their way to be nice to people that
Absolutely.
I would not have done. I have called them many times. I manage a plaid pantry. I deal with the police a lot. And they're sweethearts and they're so nice, and I don't really have bad experiences with them. But that kid was white, and what if he was dark skinned, and what are the odds that they pull that trigger versus they don't?
And what's the
And
training? What's
well,
important
and
to them?
exactly. And do Black Lives Matter or don't they? And we need to have that conversation. So
So,
sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you.
yeah, well,
I love it. This is fantastic.
yeah, um, so in like you working in mental health and in the juvenile court system, I had contact, and as a chair of the neighborhood association for many years, had direct contact with both Vancouver Police Department and Clark County Sheriff officers, and they're the wrong tool for most of the stuff they're being directed to do, and they say that. I mean, they know that, to protect and to serve. They want to be the tripwire and say, well, we need to bring in the services here. And when we worked for community mediation services, and it was a robust in the city program supported by general funding, not a standalone nonprofit that has to do fundraising every year or it goes down. The city complaint desk, the land use planning, easement planning, boundary issues, and mental health could be addressed by people sitting down and talking and making agreements in their local community, supported by the police. And the police, we would invite the officers to that meeting too. And if they could come, they would come. We know how to do it. We know how to do it.
Well, we need to hold the politicians accountable. And that's what it really is. And we need, I love the Columbian, they're wonderful, but I'd like to see some more investigative reporting about what we're doing long term to help folks. And I want to see some accountability standards.
Mhm.
I want to know numbers. How many people were taken off the street that are now in housing? How many folks have moved to employment? How many folks are, these aren't quality of life issues. These are life issues. These people's lives are legitimately in danger. We have a cold snap and you're soaking wet,
Mhm.
people will freeze to death. They will die. Loretta almost died. We have to do this. And it's not a matter of we're going to wait for the next budget or it's why I emphasize direct action, is that if we don't get involved on an individual basis with individual folks, I don't think it will change. And because I'm involved, I was able to advocate for Loretta with Lifeline. I was able to advocate with CMAR. We're getting her on a reduced fee for Clark Public Utilities.
Mhm.
I was able to get just the various aspects of life. I was able to do that. And when you have someone who has mental illness, to be their advocate, to be their stand-in is so important.
It also makes me think of like that the critical mass and the tipping point, Andrew, that when people individually stand up out of human decency. And a lot of the times because a lot of what, I feel like we're talking about here is the integration of these elements that we know about. And there is such a disconnect. There's a disconnect between the services and the people that need them. There's a disconnect between what's happening with people on the street and the way we view them. And I don't know what that is. Like, I feel like, honestly, this is why we wanted you here today. You are a beautiful, spiders and all, I'm sorry, my darling, but you are sorry. Oh, what's the matter with you? You should have done it sooner.
Thank you. That's what I need. That's the only way I can be happy.
Oh, well, Andrew, well, I think whatever that is, because I feel like it's many, many layers, but it's also very immediate. So that's why we want very much to hear your wonderful ideas about how we can move forward with this. In terms of like the person that you see, and holding media accountable, holding politicians accountable, how neighborhoods can get together, how we can amplify things like Lifeline and those two the two housing that you mentioned. I am not aware of them, so I would love to hear more about that. And it sounds like we do, like David just said, it sounds like we know what to do. We just got to do it.
Absolutely true. And a small how-to, if I could just do a brief interim
Please.
here. When you identify a need, when you see an individual, and what you'll notice is that homeless individuals will stick to a specific area. They have sort of, they have a territory which they will sort of meander around in. Those with a car will usually park in the same place on a regular basis. To reach out to this person, they may be very uncomfortable with you talking to them. Your personal safety is, of course, first and foremost, but start a conversation and don't walk up to them with a sandwich. Walk up to them with a hello. Don't assume that they need you. Don't assume, because in some cases, these people are incredibly proud, and that's insulting to assume that they're hungry. Oh, you poor thing, let me help you. That sort of white knight, oh, I'll save you. Interact with this individual, talk to them, see what's going on with them. And what you'll determine is, number one, you'll probably see some mental illness. You may see some drug or alcohol going on there. And then you leave and you come back and you do the same thing the next day and the next day and the next day. And you need to establish a relationship with this individual. Thankfully, Loretta was my regular customer for a very long time. We knew each other, but you have to establish trust. And it's specifically with senior citizens, because they will be wary. There is a street smarts that you develop when you have to worry about people absconding with what you have. Establish a relationship with them and inquire about their family. Do you have a brother? Do you have a sister? Is there anyone that maybe could help you out in this situation? What you will inevitably find is there isn't. These are folks that cannot really utilize those resources because those are bridges they no longer have, or everyone has passed away. The street is the last resort. Nobody wants to be out there. Nobody wants to be cold. Nobody wants to be on the street. They're there because they have to be. There's nowhere else to go. And once that trust is established, then you can begin building on it and trying to figure out if you can help this individual. And it needs to be their idea. You can't, oh, here's what you need to do. You need to go down there and talk to them. No. Establish a relationship. You cannot direct someone else's life. And, thankfully, Loretta and I have that give and take now, but there's no controlling her. And when we go for walks, every single person, regardless of whether or not they're having a conversation with the park bench, we are going to stop and interact with, and inevitably I'm going to have to give them $5. So that's how she is. I always know, like, all right, Loretta, all I ever won's today. So we don't realize that these individuals, we talked about trauma earlier, that being on the street is traumatic. and it's dangerous and it's scary, and especially for women. Especially the way our society treats women, don't get me started, but especially homeless women who are very much stigmatized and who are very easily the victims of violence on the street. Being of smaller stature, it is very likely. And oftentimes, when you see women who are homeless, you do not want to approach them because they may have a weapon. And that is they need it for their personal safety, because they deal with large men who are on the street with them, and they need to protect themselves. And that is an equalizer. So you need to be careful when approaching someone. So that's establish a relationship, establish trust. Don't come in there as a white knight trying to save them immediately. Build on that, and that's how you help someone.
That's beautiful. I mean, I think that's called respecting people's basic human dignity. So Andrew, I think I get to stay in touch because I found out about you through Nextdoor, and so I'm part of the GoFundMe that you created. There's going to be yeah, I'm honored, and it was amazing, and I was so impressed because I knew you were only asking for $7,000 to begin with, and then you got like 33 or 34.
It's been overwhelming. We were trending on Google. I never imagined anything like this would happen. And,
Is that enough to take care of her?
Oh, yeah. No. We're good. You do not need to donate any more money. Do not donate any more money. We're good.
But people are going to want to stay in touch, is my point.
Yes. Oh, I am leaving the GoFundMe open. Check in with the updates. I try and do 2 updates a week. You can see about our antics. I do a little bit of a health blurb. On the 30th, when the nurse comes in, she's going to be going over with me some stuff. I'm going to be doing a daily blood pressure check. I'm going to be doing a daily weigh-in because she has lost some weight, which worries me a little bit. Her coordination is extremely good. We do the stairway in the Hilton every single day. She's on 3. She goes up to 7. We go around to the top and back down. We only ever went to 5 within the last 4 days. She goes to 7 every night. Boom, all the way around. We do a pause on 5 for catching breath. I love that stairway because there's never anybody in there. I don't have to worry about, so her general health is doing very well. Her coordination is good. She will tie her shoes the same way, both ways. That requires dexterity. She can multitask, getting out of the car, taking her seatbelt off, grabbing her bags. She'll repeat herself, but then again, some of that is natural age progression and some of that is the disease. And the nurse will help me gauge that and determine the best course of care going forward.
So is a good way for people to stay in touch with you is to maybe join the Keep Loretta Out of the Cold, because you've got a few here. It sounds like you've got at least one book. You've got
please.
Yes.
Please check in with us, check in with our antics. We're going to be driving around helping people. My poor boyfriend. We've got all the stuff in his truck. We'll be cruising around town trying to help as many people as we can. I don't want to take pictures of the individuals that we're helping with coats. That makes people extremely uncomfortable, and you never know if there's a mental health issue. I don't want to do that. I don't want this to seem exploitive. It was one of the things I was worried about with Loretta, was that this would look like it was exploitive in some way. I just want to advocate for homeless seniors who do not have family members, who do not have anyone to look after them. They are so vulnerable. And there are so many out there that we're not even seeing, and that they just slip through the cracks. These are the people that built our society, and they're vanishing. And we cannot allow that to happen. It is our moral responsibility. President Obama talked about, are you your brother's keeper? And we are, and that's important.
So what I think about is the need for us to come together in community, given all of the divisiveness. And one of the best ways to do that is to be involved in community projects where you're working with people you don't know to make things better. Thank you, Andrew.
Oh,
Thank you
Andrew,
so
thank you
much.
so much.
Thank you very much.